We've fielded a lot of questions over the years here at Calvary. While these may not always be the only answers, they're our answers, and we hope they help you as you continue to grow in your faith.
What's the deal with Joseph's divining cup? In the Old Testament, in the book of Genesis, in the story of Joseph, when he was second in command to Pharaoh of Egypt, and his brothers came, and he was having his issues with his brothers and trying to figure out what to do with them and how to reveal himself to them. At one point, he rewards them and gives them what they ask for, and he has his servant put his cup, his silver cup, in his brother's backpack so that he can then later accuse them of stealing. And it is called his divining cup, and the servant says it's the cup by which he practices divination. And so this is a concern, of course, to us as Christians who see Joseph as one of the really pure characters in the Old Testament. And so since we don't really have a lot of information other than that from the story, there are some different approaches that are taken to that. One is to note that the story never says he actually practiced divination. And then you say, well, why does he have the cup in his house? And I would wager that many of us, I don't want to say all of us, but many of us probably have something pagan in our house or in our possession, or we work someplace that is less than 100% godly. And, so Joseph, as a noble in Egypt, he wasn't living as a Jew. He was living as a noble in Egypt, and it wouldn't be unusual for him to have these kinds of things in his house, whether he used them or not. And so my own opinion is that he was all things to all people, and he certainly had to look like an Egyptian. Obviously when his brothers came to see him, they didn't recognize him, so he looked like an Egyptian, he walked like an Egyptian. He did all of those kinds of things, and his house was an Egyptian house, and that's just at a time way before we would want to apply certain restrictions on Joseph. There are those who say that he maybe did practice divination, and if he did, then it was ordained by the Lord, and they point out that there were times in the Old Testament when, for example, the Jewish high priest could appeal to whatever was the Urim and the Thummim to get a yes or no answer from God. And obviously it's not a form of divination because it's from the Lord, but ancient cultures did practice that. I like to think of Joseph in a purer way and think that he probably didn't fall into that. But some of these Old Testament characters, they have their pitfalls. I know Gideon is doing really well to the end of his life, and then he ends up with some idols. And these guys, they're not perfect. They're like us. They're stumbling their way through their walk with God. Of course, Joseph had a whole lot less information than we do about what was right and wrong, so I think he did pretty good on his own, with all of the episodes that he faced. So I hope that answers that.
Do you have a question about the Bible, theology, or church life? If so, we would love to hear it, think about it, and give our perspective on it. You can email us anytime at questions@calvaryhanford.com, and we will get it on the list for the podcast. And if you'd like to check out years worth of all sorts of topics like the ones we cover, visit calvaryhanford.com/questions. Thanks for listening.